99% of American real estate is unaffordable for an average American.
According to a new report, the impact of rising interest rates on new mortgages has put home ownership beyond the reach for many.
Mortgage rates are high. Housing prices rise much faster than incomes, and there's almost no affordable housing being built. But what if I told you there is a solution, or even a few of them? Let's see how home buyers deal with housing challenges to win this race and get the cozy home of their dreams. If you want to buy your own house, consider auctions. Why? It's a great way to buy a house for below market price. The idea of any auction is to sell or buy something. It could be anything, really, from vintage spoons to houses. Usually, the seller proposes a minimal starting price, and then all participants start bidding. As for real estate, most homes sold at auction are in foreclosure, which means that the owner has not been paying the mortgage or property taxes for an extended period. That's why the lender repossesses the property and then offers it at an auction where other people can make their bids to buy it. If you want to learn more about foreclosure, feel free to check out this video where I cover the ins and outs of foreclosure and also share a platform you can use to find homes in foreclosure. Now, back to the video. I want to emphasize that while you can get an affordable property, auctions also have disadvantages. Like what? The biggest one is that you can't inspect the house before making a bid. Thus, you could be getting a house in poor condition. If an auction doesn't feel right for you, then there are other options you can explore. For example, crowdfunding. The idea here is simple. If you want to buy a home but don't have enough money, you could go to crowdfunding platforms. There, people usually post about their needs and the projects they want funds for. You'll be surprised to see how many of them ask for financial support. It could be a renovation, home buying, or even a down payment. One of the crowdfunding platforms is GoFundMe. And here you can see Liz, who got above $2,000 for her down payment, Dan, who asked $10,000 to renovate the home after a fire and instead received over $15,000. And this is Sarah Janes. She is looking to do home renovations, and thanks to crowdfunding, she managed to get above $1,600. Basically, all these people explained their intentions and current situation, and others decided to support them, even though they are complete strangers. Let's see how it works step by step. When you post, you should answer a few questions. For instance, it's important to explain why you're fundraising. Also, you can add some details, like who or what are you fundraising for, a central image or video introducing your fundraiser, and a fundraising goal. Next, share information about your campaign with people you already know. The more reposts on social media, the more chances of success. It is important to post updates and thank your contributors. You can quickly do so on the fundraising dashboard. Finally, set up bank transfers to get your fundings. Yet, fundraising is not an option for everyone, but it might be worth a try. Many people decide not to wait until someone comes and helps them, and instead they decide to take action on their own. Meet Amy Beihl, a young woman who, like many others, wanted to buy her own property. Amy loves New York and the area she lives in, but despite renting the apartment for $2,850 per month, she still couldn't afford to buy her own home. Why? Due to the high price of housing. The prices for even the smallest apartment in her area will start at least at $1 million. The situation is pretty common not only in New York, but also in many other states across the country. Remember these statistics? 99% of places are unaffordable for Americans who earn even a median salary. Imagine how it could be for low-income people. The median annual U.S. household income is about $74,500. But here's an issue. Over 62% of households earn this or less, which means that, just like Amy, they cannot afford to buy a home. And this is almost 2/3 of Americans we're talking about. But Amy didn't want to give up. She was determined to find an alternative. And she did. Instead of buying one property in the US, she bought 5 in Europe. What? Wait, how's that possible? You see, several years ago, Amy learned about people who bought or built houses in Europe's rural areas. Some of them spent less than $10,000 on that. But Amy didn't want to build a house herself or get a place in the middle of nowhere. So she kept looking for options. That's how she discovered fractional ownership. What is that? Well, the concept is pretty simple. You invest in part of a particular real estate and become a fractional owner. That's what Amy did. She invested in part of 5 vacation homes. She bought a portion of 21 available. In this way, she and 20 other people gain access to the set of real estate. The logical question here is, how can many people share these 5 houses? Does it even make sense? Well, it kind of does for some people. To become a fractional owner, Amy used a platform called August. In here, you can become the owner of several homes at the same time. You choose a set that best suits you, and then you invest the needed amount. Ultimately, you become an owner. Well, technically, a co-owner. But how do you share these properties with others? August has a points-based system. Every co-owner gets the same number of points, 36 per year. You can then use those points to pay for staying at your property. The price of your stay will depend on high and low seasons. And obviously, a week in high season is worth more points than a week in low season. So how much time do you get to spend in your properties? For example, if you choose to book only during peak season, you will have access to 7 weeks of stay per year. If you book only during the low season, you can get anywhere from 12 to 19 weeks at your properties. But again, these are vacation homes, so getting up to 5 months of stay at different locations in Europe doesn't really sound that bad. And on top of this, you can sell your shares, and they can even go up in value over time. So what do we have here? Amy invested about $370,000 in 5 properties somewhere in Europe. That's cheaper than buying an average single-family home in the US. If she were to buy all of these properties entirely, not just a share of them, it will cost her around $7 million. This is a huge number. That's why fractional ownership opens great opportunities that will otherwise be unavailable for most people. And the best thing is that these options are also available outside of Europe. Fractional ownership is also available in the US. Check these ones out. Luxury shares, which works for the luxury and elite segment of real estate. Real IT, a blockchain power platform for investing in US properties, while Ember allows fractional ownership in the US real estate for vacation purposes. And the list goes on and on. If fractional ownership sounds crazy to you, wait until you hear the next story. Here is a Canadian blogger, Kyle MacDonald, and his project called One Red Paperclip. This man became famous in 2006 after trading an ordinary paperclip for a house. Yes, you heard that right, a paperclip, just like this one. To come from this to a house, he had to spend 1 year and make 14 deals. So first, he changed his paperclip for a fish-shaped pen. Then he exchanged the pen for a handmade doorknob. Next, he got a camp stove for his doorknob. Then came a generator, a keg of beer, a neon sign, a snowmobile, a trip to Yak in British Columbia, a box truck, a music recording contract, then a year's rent in Arizona, and a day with Alice Cooper's rock band. Then came his strangest trade. Kyle exchanged his Kiss-style motorized snow globe for a role in a Hollywood movie. This deal was possible because actor Corbin Benson also happened to be a globe fanatic. And then, finally, for trade number 14, Kyle exchanged his movie role for a 2-story farmhouse in Kipling, Saskatchewan. Of course, this is an uncommon example, and obviously very few of us will do that. Still, Kyle's story shows that you can achieve your dreams even without really having money. Now, let's get back to an average American for whom the situation is still challenging. Housing prices are increasing, whether it's rent or a mortgage payment. Rental prices are now 29% higher than they were before the pandemic. And today, an average family spends more than a third of their income in housing, which makes a typical American renter rent burn. Because ideally, rent expenses should not exceed 30% of the income. And some situations are even more extreme. millions of Americans spend half of their paycheck on rent.
As rent prices rise across the country, more people are struggling to make ends meet every month.
And for those who want to buy a house instead of renting, the situation is similar. Now, the average home price in the U.S. is over $417,000.
Before the pandemic, the same sort of houses that you were looking at that you were unable to buy, how much would they have cost?
$250,000, $275,000. Now,
how much are they now?
Close to $400,000.
And the mortgage rates are still above 6.8%. Of course, American history has seen much higher rates. Still, many are not sure if they can actually afford to buy a house. All right, so we all know that housing prices are crazy these days, but why doesn't the government do something about it? Well, actually, they are. A number of states have policies that support people in getting housing.
I know the cost of housing is so important to you.
Housing policy has become a spicy topic lately, and politicians know that it could influence voters' decision in the upcoming presidential election this November. Joe Biden proposed a new tax credit to help first-time homebuyers and those selling their starter properties. Basically, it's a mortgage relief credit of $10,000 paid over 2 years, and it can reduce the average home's mortgage rate by over 1.5%. First-time homebuyers also get up to $25,000 in down payment assistance. I mean, these are only promises for now. For all we know, these programs might not even get approved. But what about Americans who want affordable housing today? Imagine living in an apartment with a 24-hour fitness center, an outdoor yoga studio, a rooftop bar with grilling stations, a media lounge, an on-site parking. Sounds good and expensive. Sure, a lot of people will want to live in a place like this, but is that possible? Well, you can try your luck in the lottery. It might sound like a joke, but it actually works in many places. These are just some of the examples in New York. The main aim of this initiative is to get more affordable housing for New Yorkers. How does the program work? Basically, you just need to apply. But to be eligible, your family must meet the income and unit size requirements. These vary depending on housing options. For example, to accept housing with rents of $2,300 a month in Queens, you need to have an income of between $78,858 and $165,230. While for some Americans, $2,300 per month might not sound too affordable, this type of housing has a rent price that is $500 lower than the average for Queens. Plus, the rent is fixed, so no one will increase it overnight. Are there any other government programs to help Americans get affordable housing? Yes, down payment assistance or DPA, USDA Loans, VA Loans, and FHA Loans. Let's review those. The first one is down payment assistance or DPA. It allows you to purchase a home without having cash right away. Who's funding all this? Home buying fund programs. The terms vary. Usually, you can get a 3.5% loan to cover the down payment of a 5% loan to cover the down payment and closing costs. Those in the middle or lower income category can have a 0% interest rates and no monthly payments. And on top of that, the loan can be forgiven. For example, the 3.5% option is forgiven after you make the first 36 mortgage payments on time. The 5% option is forgiven after 10 years of payments with no delays of 60 days or more. So, note that most down payment assistance programs usually have credit history and income requirements. And if you take a program for first-time homebuyers, you may need to take a mortgage education course. What about USDA loans? They require no down payment or minimum credit score, and they encourage homeownership in rural areas. These loans provide subsidized interest rates. To qualify, you must be a lawful permanent U.S. resident, prove your creditworthiness, have a primary residence in a rural area, maintain a stable income, have a per family income at or below 115% of the area's median income. The next option of government support is VA or Veteran Affairs loans. These are homeownership opportunities for U.S. military personnel, veterans, and their spouses. VA loans have no down payment or credit score requirements like USDA loans. but you must have a certificate of eligibility to apply. It verifies your service history and current status to prove that you are eligible for a loan. And to qualify, you must meet the following requirements: have served 90 days of active duty during wartime, or have 180 days of active duty in peacetime, or serve 6 years in the National Guard or Reserves, or be the spouse of a military member who died in the line of duty or as a result of a service-connected disability. All this can get you a 0% down payment and lower interest rates. Finally, you can take opportunities from the FHA or Federal Housing Administration loans. And what are the benefits? FHA loans have flexible credit score requirements. In simple words, if your credit score is low, you can still get a loan. For example, they require a minimum down payment of 3.5% for borrowers with a credit score of 580 or higher. Normally, people with such a credit score will be rejected. Even borrowers with credit scores lower than 500 can get approved if they make a down payment of 10% or more. What's essential to get this kind of loan? Well, for that, you will need proof of employment and income. The borrower's debt-to-income ratio must be 43% or less, but the good news is that FHA can allow ratios of up to 56.9% if there are compensating factors like cash reserves, residual income, high credit history, and stable employment. But FHA loans can only be used to buy a primary house. As for the loan limits, they vary by county, reaching as high as $822,375 in areas with high housing costs. Well, despite the disappointing trend of rising real estate prices, Americans don't give up and try to find new options, just like the ones you saw today. Hope you find today's content useful, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.